In August 1997, McDonnell Douglas stops existing as an aircraft manufacturer, absorbed into Boeing in a $13 billion stock merger. Sitting on the production line in Long Beach, California, is a 100-seat jet the industry knows as the MD-95, rear-mounted engines, a T-tail, a wing that traces back to a design from the 1960s. Boeing inherits it whether Boeing wants it or not, along with a single firm order and a reputation problem. Nobody expects the new owner to keep building someone else's airplane. 5 months later, on the 8th of January 1998, Boeing renames it anyway. The MD-95 becomes the Boeing 717. 28 years on, it remains the only commercial jet ever sold under the Boeing name that Boeing did not design. The story of how that happened starts 14 years earlier in a McDonnell Douglas engineering office working on a project that did not even have a name yet, only a code, the DC-9-90. The DC-990 dates back to 1983, when McDonnell Douglas studied a stretched, updated DC-9 aimed at filling the gap between the aging DC-930 and the larger MD-80. The DC-990 never got built. Money was tight, so the company shrank its ambitions instead, reworking the MD-80 into a smaller variant called the MD-87-105. That aircraft never wore McDonnell Douglas colors either. What survived was the idea, and in June 1991 at the Paris Air Show, McDonnell Douglas gave that idea a new name, the MD-95. The plan called for board approval by late 1991 and a first flight by July 1994. Board approval to formally offer the aircraft did not arrive until the 22nd of July 1994, 3 years behind schedule, because McDonnell Douglas could not commit the cash any faster. The delay mattered because the MD-95 was never meant to be one airplane. McDonnell Douglas talked publicly about a whole family, a shortened version and a stretched version, sold alongside the standard MD-95-30 so an airline could standardize on 3 sizes of the same jet. None of those variants existed anywhere but on paper. The company barely had the money to finish the aircraft in front of it, let alone build 2 more around it. The company's most loyal customers noticed. In March 1995, Scandinavian Airlines System, which had bought MD-80s and DC-9s for decades, chose the Boeing 737-600 for its 100-seat replacement instead of the MD-95. It was a direct rejection from a longtime partner, and it left the program without a single order 7 months before McDonnell Douglas needed one to survive. On the 19th of October 1995, the low-cost carrier ValuJet placed an order for 50 MD-95s, with options for 50 more. McDonnell Douglas President Harry Stonecipher decided that one order was launch enough. He told analysts further orders would take a while longer. And he was right. The ValuJet order stood alone for close to 2 years. McDonnell Douglas built the airplane anyway, betting the program's survival on a startup airline that had only existed since 1993. By the time metal was actually being cut for the first MD-95, the parent company itself was running out of room to maneuver. Boeing announced in December 1996 that it would acquire McDonnell Douglas, and the deal closed on the 1st of August 1997. None of the engineering underneath the new name came from Boeing. Dave Williams, a former McDonnell Douglas executive, said in 2003 that the company could only ever have built the aircraft by using other people to do it. The corporation never had the cash to fund it alone. That dependence shaped the entire airframe. The nose and cockpit were built by Korean Air in South Korea. Alenia built the fuselage in Italy. The tail assembly came from the Aerospace Industrial Development Corporation in Taiwan. Shinmeiwa in Japan built the horizontal stabilizer and engine pylons. Israel Aircraft Industries supplied the undercarriage. 16 partners across the United States and 8 countries in Asia and Europe touched the airplane before it ever reached Long Beach for final assembly. The 2 engines were the only genuinely new component. Rolls-Royce BR715 turbofans developed through the BMW Rolls-Royce joint venture, each rated at roughly 18,500 pounds of thrust, controlled by a fully digital engine system built by BAE Systems. The first Boeing-badged 717 rolled out of the Long Beach factory on the 10th of June 1998. On the 2nd of September 1998, at 12:35 in the afternoon, it took off for the first time, flown by Captains Ralph Luzak and Tom Melody, with flight test conductor Will Gibbons on board. The airplane climbed out over Santa Catalina Island, then turned toward Boeing's flight test center in Yuma, Arizona, logging 4 hours and 7 minutes on its first flight. 4 more test aircraft joined it over the following year, flying more than 2,000 hours between them before anyone would be allowed to sell a ticket on the type. By the way, if you're into stories like this, subscribing takes 2 seconds, and there's a lot more coming. The Boeing 717-200 earned FAA certification on the 1st of September 1999. The Joint Aviation Authorities followed with their own certification within weeks, under a joint arrangement the two regulators had never used together on a commercial jet before. AirTran Airways, the airline ValuJet had become after rebranding in 1997 following a fatal 1996 crash, took delivery of the first production aircraft that same month. On the 12th of October 1999, AirTran flew the type's first revenue service on the route between Atlanta and Washington Dulles. Trans World Airlines followed with an order for 50 717s in 1998, with an option on 50 more, giving the program its second real customer. Then came September 2001. Airline traffic collapsed, and Boeing opened a formal review of every commercial program's future, the 717 included. The case against continuing was straightforward. The aircraft was still selling in single digits some years, and Boeing's own 737-600 and 737-700 covered similar seat counts. Boeing decided to keep building it anyway, betting on long-term demand for the 100-seat segment rather than short-term order books. The numbers looked grim at first. 19 worldwide sales in 2000, only 6 in 2001, before recovering to 32 orders in 2002 in the middle of the worst industry downturn in decades. On the 18th of June 2002, AirTran took delivery of the 100th 717 built. Boeing engineers spent that same period studying 2 more variants, a shortened 717-100X and a stretched 717-300X, using the same family logic McDonnell Douglas had sketched out back in 1991. Both were shelved by 2003 for the same reason the MD-95 family plan had stalled a decade earlier: not enough confirmed demand to justify the tooling. It was not enough to change the aircraft's fundamental problem. Every 717 Boeing sold competed for the same airline budget as a 737, built by the same company, in the same factory system, for less commercial reason than either side wanted to admit. The 717 production line got its end date on the 15th of January 2005, when Boeing announced it would close out the program once the existing order backlog was filled. Regional jets from Bombardier and Embraer had already taken a heavy toll on the seat category the 717 was built for, and Boeing had never sold more than a fraction of the 2,500 jetliners in the 80 to 120 seat range it once predicted the market would need over 20 years. The last 717 came off the Long Beach assembly line in April 2006. The final 2 aircraft, ordered by AirTran and Midwest Airlines, were delivered on the 23rd of May 2006. 156 built in total, more than half of them to the same launch customer that had placed the only order McDonnell Douglas ever secured. It was the last commercial airplane built at the Long Beach plant Donald Douglas had opened in 1941, closing a production line that had run continuously under 3 company names since before the Second World War. The airplane outlived the ending everyone expected for it. Southwest Airlines acquired AirTran in 2011, but had no use for a jet outside its all-737 fleet. So starting in 2012, Southwest and Boeing arranged for Delta Airlines to lease AirTran's 717s instead. Delta became the largest 717 operator in the world as a result, and as of 2025, it still flies the type on short domestic routes out of Atlanta, Detroit, and Minneapolis-St. Paul. Hawaiian Airlines uses its 717s for inter-island hops between Honolulu, Maui, Kona, and Lihue, routes short enough that little else in production fits the mission as well. Hawaiian's chief executive Peter Ingram said in 2024 that the 711 still has enough life left in it, with no replacement yet chosen and full retirement still years away. Volotea, the last European operator, retired its final 711s in January 2021, ending the type's service on that continent. Qantas Link in Australia never bought its 711s new. It inherited 5 of them in 2001 from Impulse Airlines, a regional carrier that collapsed the same year, and kept flying them regardless. Nobody at Boeing designed the wing, the fuselage, the tail, or the flight deck that carries the company's name on more than 100 aircraft still flying today. McDonnell Douglas designed all of it, starting from a DC-9 airframe first flown in 1965. Refined through a decade of studies the company could never afford to finish on its own terms. Boeing supplied the badge, the sales force, and the decision, made against its own commercial interest, to keep the production line running through a merger, a recession, and a market that never grew as large as anyone promised. The 711 carries a Boeing model number. Everything that makes it fly belongs to a company that stopped existing before most of the aircraft still in service were ever built. If this story was worth your time, hit like and subscribe, and drop what you think in the comments.